You want to see how we do it in the pros?
Changing your swing is about repetition without repetition. You don't just hit 500 balls with this thing and change your swing. You also don't just hit 500 balls without a thought.
Welcome to Earned Not Given.
Well, guys, I am so excited for episode 4 of the Earned Not Given podcast. Today we have one of my favorite instructors because he's not just an instructor, he's truly a coach. He approaches golf performance not just about the golf swing, but he looks at it truly from a holistic approach. We have Rick Sessinghaus in the house, and Rick's been amazing to me. I think the first time we really got to hang out, Rick, was sitting in the little teacher's shack there at Augusta. I think I was trying every one of the sandwiches because it was my first time, and you were amazing to take care of me and take me under your wing, and we've had some great conversations over the years. And today I think this is going to be a great conversation for our listeners to understand from the perspective of a coach who played professional golf, then became a coach, then took a player from a young junior golfer to a multiple major winner. And in that time, you not only had success, but you also formulated who Rick Sessinghaus is as a coach. So before we start, obviously you have a ton of accolades. You're top 50 coach. You've won Southern California PGA Teacher of the Year. And I could sit here and waste 30 minutes talking about all the things you've done. But really, most importantly, you've been a pioneer and an inspiration to me. So I just want to say thank you.
Appreciate that so much. Yeah, you know it. We're in this together as coaches. All of us have had our own journeys, and to be able to support each other is very important.
Yeah, and you do an amazing job of that, and we're going to really dive into it. Obviously, you are exceptional at teaching people how to get into an optimal state and how to perform. So before this podcast started, I did a few of your drills, so hopefully I'm flowing here by the end. But if you would just walk the listeners through who have potentially been living under the rock for the last 15 years, who you are, how you got into coaching, and where that journey's taken you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my upbringing was in sports, but not in golf. So my dad was a football coach on the side. And so I played football, basketball, baseball, tennis, loved athletics. And it was very important growing up to have that as a core part, that you always had a sport to go play throughout the year. I was introduced to golf right around 13 years old, didn't play competitively until high school, played one junior golf tournament. I was still playing football, and it was just one of those love affairs with golf where it just kind of clicked one day. You're like, this is what I should be doing all the time. This is awesome. You know, I get to be outside. And I think what it intrigued me with what it does with a lot of people is how difficult the game was in relationship to other sports that I had played. You know, you could be a great athlete and pick up basketball, pick up these things fairly quickly. I felt golf was a different animal. And to me, that intrigued me. And so I went all in probably when I was 16 years old, very average junior golfer, and then ended up walking on at Cal State Northridge, a Division I program here in Los Angeles area. And very long story short, was a pretty good ball striker, but short game and mental game was not good enough to be at a high level. Yet when you're playing D1, you always think, I could play pro. I could, and that's fine. You want to have that passion and goal. So turned pro, did nothing with it. It was the same kind of, shoot a bunch of 71s and hope you make some cuts. And of course, that's not going to work. So I come from a player's perspective, even as a coach now, of understanding the ups and downs. And back to the word performance is really kind of what I put my hat on, is we want somebody to perform better. And I was just thinking about it last night of, we have all these swing coaches and we have all this data driven, and I'm getting confused. And this is something I would like to maybe talk about throughout this, is what constitutes a good golf swing now? And I'm seriously, I'm confused now because of all the analytics. And I thought what a good golf swing was it led to shooting lower scores. I don't know. That's just me. I thought that the lower the score you shot, the you were considered a better golfer. Part of that was controlling your ball, not only dispersion right or left, but also having good distance control and hitting different shots when it mattered. But I think we're starting to go down a road of analytics that everything has to be a certain way. Now, I'll shelve that to later in our discussion. But that does lead to a lot of when I became a coach is that I got obsessed with golf swing first. So it was P1, P2, P3. I had taken some a weekend with Mac O'Grady, started understanding. It was fantastic to give me a framework of cause and effect. And that still to this day is extremely important, even in the mental side. There's a cause, there's an effect. The coach who has the most experience can drill down the true cause quicker than a beginner coach was. And a beginner coach, I was just trying anything that stuck, right? And some lessons worked, some lessons was a train wreck, right? But as I started understanding cause and effect from relationships with golf swing and where the club was and the club face, I got better, and it comes with repetitions. I was very, very fortunate to start my coaching career as an independent contractor and build my own business. And I could coach at any time. I could give free lessons. I could do, and that was really good from a standpoint of, yes, I made mistakes, but I was a full-time instructor. I wasn't in the shop. I wasn't doing those things because I just loved helping people. So being around golf, helping people was the combination. And at first it was definitely golf swing. It was definitely obsessed with cause and effect of what the ball flight was doing. And this is, again, well before we had TrackMans and full swings and all those type of things. We're barely using camcorders at that time for video. So, so that's the start of the coaching. And I know we'll get into some other major parts of these last 30 years as a journey. But I would say the first 5 years was a lot of golf swing, 40 hours a week at the end of a driving range at a public golf course here in Glendale, California. Got to hone the craft a little bit. But early on, I loved coaching golf on the golf course. This is where I felt was a disconnect in golf. I played all these other sports, and we never practiced it outside of the field of play, which I always thought was interesting. So football, I was a quarterback. We practiced plays. We practiced scenarios. You got 2 timeouts with one, and you were on a football field. You were playing football. And golf was always a weird disconnect for me. It's like, we're practicing golf in a different environment. Okay. And that's supposed to translate. So I always had a challenge with that, and I still to this day. And so I was able to, at this golf course, be able to take people on the golf course. And I loved it as a coach. They loved it as players. And I think it then went into the next part of my instruction, which was the mental side of the game. We'll just generally say mental game, even though to me, it's all about performance. And I knew I needed it in college, and I was a hothead. So I was very frustrated, very angry on the golf course when I didn't meet my expectations. I honestly didn't know how to prep for a tournament. And back then, again, this is 30, 35 years ago, you had a few mental game guys out there. I saw one of them, great guy, but the information was just a little bit too generic. It was take a breath and have positive thinking and forget about it. And that just didn't gel with me because it's hard to forget about when you just hit it in somebody's backyard and they double. So I wanted to be able to go, okay, there's got to be some skills there. So went down the rabbit hole, went back to school, got a master's and doctorate in applied sports psychology, wrote a book. And that's when I was now in love with human performance, and went down some many rabbit holes that had nothing to do with golf. And stuff, and we'll get into that. So I'm going to take a quick breath here. Is there anything on that first part that you wanted to drill down on?
Well, first off, I think that's the journey that makes you such a great coach, right? You did what you thought was the right path to take as being a player and being a little obsessed with your swing. And obviously you said you were a hothead at times, so it would make sense that we see you modeling the same thing that we see day in and day out, whether it's on the lesson tee with the average recreational golfer, elite college player, or professional player. Is there's a value that's placed higher on the golf swing, or let's just call it skill development, right? And then there's this other component that's kind of left alone, right? Which is the performance side, or some people generalize it and call it the mental side, right? But I wanted you to kind of explain the reason why you think you were gravitated towards teaching on the golf course, and then by doing those playing lessons, right? Obviously, we're making interventions with golf swing while we're out there, but was that the foundation of you starting to understand, if I influence a player to have a different focus, I'm able to see a change in their mechanics?
100%. I loved how you say influence. And I think that's where, when I took them into the environment of a golf course now, asked them to hit different golf shots, whether it was a tee shot, whether it was ball above the feet, whether it was a flop shot over a bunker, whether it's a 6-footer downhill, and putting them in these different scenarios, to now the coachable moments were like instantaneous. Sometimes in a golf lesson on the range, it may take 10, 15 minutes to see a pattern. It may see, okay, I'm slicing a ball. Okay, let's go. And yes, that's important. We have motor patterns that we're going to default to under pressure, but I didn't know that back then. I thought it was just, oh, we become a robot and we just do it over and over again. But when we take somebody into a different environment, I was fascinated with taking an average player, let's say they shoot 85-ish, maybe they get to 80 every now and then, of how poor they were with decision making, how poor they were with focus. And when they start to be vulnerable and they start to go, Rick, I'm really nervous now. I go, oh, in front of me? He goes, no, I don't like this shot. I always hit it over here. And then you hear the self-talk and you hear where their distractions are. And then you go, oh, okay, well, we have some ways to do this, right? Let's play your pattern. Let's play. Hey, you know what the ball does when it's above your feet? Oh, I really don't. Okay, how about that? Oh my gosh. So it's, yes, you had some skill acquisition, but the only way that it would come to light is in the environment that you're playing. And because some of the time you play 18 holes and somebody comes to you for a lesson, I shot 85 again, and my damn driver went into the trees 5 times. But if you ask them to unpack it more, they don't remember the ball above their feet, that one, and they don't remember the thin lie with the chip shot. It's too muddled. But when you take them on the golf course and you throw them different and you go, well, I don't know what to do, then you go, oh, cool, this is awesome. And so that, and again, I wouldn't call myself a mental game coach at that point. I'm saying I'm a golf coach. This is what golf is. We're playing golf. Here's the scenarios. Do you have the skills to match the challenge in front of you? If it's no, hey, let's work on it. Ball above your feet. Let's stand a little taller. Let's grip down a little bit. Let's put the ball back and let's hit 3/4. Oh, wow, that's a solid shot. I can play that. I go, great. So that what happened with those moments is the aha for the student lit up. And I'm going, I think I'm onto something. Okay. And that led to more playing lessons. That led to, like, back then I was a series of 6 lessons, right? That was the package, right? But I always made it mandatory that the 5th or 6th lesson was done on the golf course, right? But that became part of the package. And then you start bleeding in where the student goes, you know what, could we do another one on the course? And then could we do another? And then before, people were looking forward to that. So I knew it was a need. I saw the instant feedback, and it just more resonated with me with other sports as I was coaching the game where it was supposed to be played.
I love that. And coaching the game where it's supposed to be played, and coaching in today's landscape, right? Obviously, you started this journey before there was a specialist in every single skill, right? Now we have, putting experts, we have short game experts, we have full swing experts, and we have all these individuals a part of a team. I think it's really cool that when you started, you were the team, right? And I'm not saying that the teams aren't important. I think what's amazing is that your journey allowed you to build a foundation in each of those areas. So ultimately, as you grew as a coach and you became more renowned and better players started to seek you out, or actually in your case, right, you started to really develop these players. And then you started to go from that driving range to the golf course to then coaching on the PGA Tour to then coaching at major championships, and then being there to help players win those major championships. But you have an amazing quote or formula that I really like, which is potential minus interference equals performance. And I think your journey as a coach shows that you learned how to smooth out that interference, not just for your player, but also for yourself.
Definitely. And that equation came from a very famous performance psychologist, Tim Galloway. A lot of people know inner game of golf, inner game of tennis, inner game of skiing. I got to meet him and such. So I like the word interference better than negative or something like that, because interference could be I woke up and my lower back hurts. Well, my lower back hurts. I can't maybe turn the same way. That's an interference physically. That makes sense. I was fascinated with certainly those things, but I was also fascinated with the internal interferences of distractions and doubts and fears and stress responses and why somebody was showing up. That's kind of the term I use. How were they showing up on that first tee? Was it any different than the day before or the next day? And I found that people were showing up a lot different depending on the environment. And so I wanted to look at what in the environment externally was triggering a change in internal environment. And a lot of that now led to interference. And when you have interference, you're not going to be at your best and you're going to default back to what's comfortable. And what's comfortable is not always optimal. Okay. And so I think that's what I started to learn was one, everybody is different. Okay. So I do not coach the same to every single player. I've studied personality styles, I've studied learning styles, all those type of things, and everybody is different. So you used the word development earlier, which I'm proud of, is that I look at myself as a coach who likes to develop players. Rarely do I ever see somebody for a 1-hour session and never see him again. This is even 15 years ago. It was a relationship, right? You know this. We build relationships. The student trusts you, and you're there to help them along this journey. And developing, I started to zero in. And I know we'll talk about my identity as a coach. I started zeroing in on who do I want to help the most, and it happened to be junior golfers. Okay, and why junior golfers? Because I feel one, they had less baggage. Okay, mental and emotional baggage. They usually are more curious to learn, and I like having fun and competing and those type of things. I'm a kid at heart, so it was kind of like a win-win. And so when I started seeing more and more better junior golfers throughout the years, I knew that was my fit. And then so happens, meeting Collin Morrikawa when he was 8 years old, and him and his dad coming to me at the end of a driving range and saying, oh, Collin's taking some group lessons, but we feel he's ready for some one-on-one, and we heard about you and stuff. And then I go, oh, great. And I always joke. I said, I see him hit a few balls. I go, you bet I'll work with him. He already had a very natural athletic golf swing at the age of 8. And whether it was him or I was fortunate to work with a lot of very good junior golfers, and to see again, the word development, that some of it was swing, some of it was helping them get a physical assessment, getting properly fit equipment. And then as they got older, certainly doing some biomechanics stuff with force plates. I mean, I was open to all that, don't get me wrong. But these juniors trusted me as kind of being the head coach in that. And I really took that serious as we went along. So like with Collin, you have somebody who's passionate, who's athletic, who comes from a great family, support system, great attitude. You're going, wow, this is awesome, right? But as you well know, there is no guarantees, okay? I was working with a player at his same exact age who I only worked mental game, but with Collin, I was his swing coach, putting coach, mental coach, all that. Another player who had already verbally committed to a high-level D1 when he was 12 years old. You're like, holy smokes. So he was supposed to be the next coming, right? And you now look at how these things progress, and Collin was a very good player, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like he's been written up throughout the country. Oh my God, you got to see this guy. He's just a very good, solid player. The other person was. Now, very long story short, that other person no longer plays golf. That person did end up going to college, but then they quit after a couple of years. They were burned out, and they were just right. Now, did they have more physical talent? I don't know. They hit the ball really, really well, but they didn't have some of the other things that needed to be developed to get to the another level. And seeing what Collin did with his work ethic and his attitude, and you go, okay, he's got a chance, right? And at every level, he got a little better, and to then take him through college, take him through the first 4 years on the PGA Tour, and winning and the majors. I mean, it was phenomenal, and it was again such a great opportunity for me in that journey to learn what it's like to now be in that spotlight is completely different than maybe being a top 5 junior golfer in the country. And so that accelerated me as a coach to go, wait a second, now I'm seeing the best players in the world week in and week out performing. Is there anything else I'm missing? Right. And so I'm thinking all these type of things. And so I'm very, very fortunate for that relationship that we were together for 18 years to see that. And development is an interesting word, because I think we get stuck as coaches in our silos of, well, it's only about the golf swing, or it's only about biomechanics, it's only about this. And I'm biased to the mental game, I'll admit that. But how can we kind of step away and go, okay, why is that person shooting 65 that week and 85, not 85, but let's say 76 the next week? They're back to the interference. What's the interference? And I think in this day and age, we go immediately to 3D and biomechanics, and oh, this is off 2 degrees, and might be, or their sleep patterns suck, and they're stressed, and they've got an issue with their spouse, and they're having a hard time focusing on this type of golf course because it doesn't fit their. I mean, the list goes on and on of the things that affect performance. I am more intrigued about those things than if my path is 2.5 degrees to the right compared to 1.5. I know that affects ball flight, everybody, but that did not intrigue me as much as I got older. What intrigued me is about the person and about that, back to that interference. What's their internal environment, their focus, their emotions? How is that getting affected by their environment that they're in externally? So again, I can go down some other rabbit holes on that, but it's been an awesome journey, and I keep learning, and that's back to learning from the player. I felt like as a coach, first 5 years I was telling somebody what to do, and then it became asking better questions, learning from them. Almost, I had 3 playing lessons yesterday, and I was always, this one woman hits this great golf shot. I said, "What were you thinking? What were you feeling? What were you doing?" Right? Well, I kept it very simple. I said, patient and turn. I go, great. Now we've got something to work with, right? So I was trying to get her awareness of what she was experiencing in that moment will help her move on, instead of me saying, you need to focus like this, and you need to visualize like this, and you need to do this breathing pattern, which I could have done early in my career because I thought it was very formulaic. But people have so many variables that's going on. So listen to the student, ask questions instead of just spew information, which I used to do all the time.
Yeah, and I love that. Your journey is incredible, right? And for people that just need to go and look at the track record that you guys had together is remarkable, right? But more remarkable than all the outcomes that you guys had, I think the friendship and the role that you played, not just as instructor, but as that cultivator of the environment, is amazing, right? And so you talked about a few things early on. One of the things you said is you were a hothead. Obviously, knowing that helped formed your identity as a coach, right? Because that we always want to help players kind of overcome some of the things that limited us. So if this is a player listening or a parent listening who has son or daughter that is a hothead or tends to be a little bit too outcome focused, or ultimately maybe that interference limits their performance, what are some tangible things that you think you coached your players, or you now are coaching future players to avoid that?
Sure. And again, getting into coaching, you project what I needed to work on in the first place, right? Because that's only my own experience. Oh, I'm a hothead, thus most people should be hotheads. Not necessarily. They have different emotional reactions to outcomes. I just happen to be what we call higher on the scale of intensity. Okay. So anger, frustration was where I went to. I have other players, we call it tanking, right? They are almost like feeling worthless and the energy's down, and they finish the round of golf, but by no means are they engaged in it, right? They've mentally quit. So there's different intensity levels. So when we look at emotional response, it's interesting because golf is an individual sport, and there's actually a lot more time in between shots, yet I don't think anybody uses it productively. Okay. So let me backtrack real quick. So I grew up in other sports. Football, I make a mistake. The next play, I can run out some of that energy, right? I have some physical outlet. I can hit somebody. I can get hit, right? The emotions can actually feed maybe running faster, right? And stuff like that. So sometimes it can feed. Golf I did not know any outlets. So my model was, oh, you're supposed to show you get pissed off after you hit a bad shot because that shows everybody that's not who I am. I know to hit that. And then they go, well, that's the fifth one you've hit. This is kind of what you do, right? But we were trying to protect our ego as a player. So what I would look at is expectation management, I think, is crucial. I was mentored by a sports psychologist by Dr. Patrick Cohn, who's fantastic, and we've talked a lot about expectation management in the past. And I think it's an interesting one is that we put a lot of time in, right? You have those junior golfers, you have these competitive, they put a lot of time in. Thus, I expect better results. Makes sense totally logically, right? Yet on a shot by shot basis, now they expect that shot, let's say from 100 yards, should be 8 feet all the time. And you and I both know, wow, that's a nice goal to have. But to have that as an expectation, you're going to be running yourself into the wall a lot because the best players in the world don't even average that. So I think that's what stats has helped in the last few years is for people to have better expectation management. You think you're that good, but even the best in the world are not even that good. That was one thing. The other thing was which I've really improved upon as a person too, is I don't get the result I want. What can I learn from it instead of being critical? Very easy. I hit the ball 50 yards into the trees. Old Rick would say, you suck, and slam the club. Now, Rick hits it 50 yards left. I go, not a very good golf shot. That was 50 yards off my intended line. I wonder why. So I like to be curious over critical. I'm curious why that went there instead of you suck, Rick, and I'm in my head and I'm just blaming myself instead of saying there is a reason, but most people will just blame golf swing. I shut the face. True, it did. I'm not going to argue against physics, everybody, but I forgot to tell you there was water on the right that I dumped it in yesterday. My last thought was don't go right. And under stress, my default is to get quicker. Fight or flight, I tend to get the hell out of there and I get underplan and I flip it. So yes, there's a physical cause why it went left, but my interference was the fear of going into that water. And if that wasn't dealt with, I'm going to keep making that same mistake on that particular environment again. So I want players to manage expectations. I want them to also in a post-shot routine, look at shots in a curious manner instead of critical and judgmental. I think this is again, 25, 30, 35 years ago when there were some mental game coaches that would say, just forget about it. And I get why they're saying that, but I think it's impossible. So if I have something that triggers an emotion, I am not going to forget about it. Oh, just forget about it. No, this matters. This is important to me. I need a way to now process that. And that's where, I'm not saying I invented the post-shot routine, but I've definitely talked about it for the last 25 years that rarely is talked about is what do I want to, how do I choose to respond to the shot instead of react? It's very easy to react. Hit bad shot, slam club, you suck. I did that a lot. Now it's hit shot, observe it. That wasn't my intended shot. I wonder why it went that way. Oh, maybe the wind was here. I don't know. But I want the feedback loop. How quickly can I learn so I don't make that mistake again and I can make adjustments? So I think, and we'll get into parents here in a moment, I think parents also have to have reasonable expectations. And when I work with parents, I said, you as a parent, I have 3 kids. You have every right to be hard on your child when it comes to behavior. If your son or daughter is slamming clubs, if they're saying swear words out loud, if they're disrespecting rules officials, if their etiquette is bad, you have every right to get at them. Totally get it. But when they 3-putt 18 and they come off and you just how could you do that? How could you? Good luck with that. Okay. Because now you're going to get the junior golfer, that son or daughter is going to be in a fear mindset because they don't want to make a mistake, but God forbid they don't want the reaction that they know they're going to get if they make a mistake. So now they become more and more fear-based, and that gets them in the way. So parents out there, your kid is constantly vibing your energy and hearing that. Parents, you probably have unrealistic expectations to begin with, and you coming off a golf course need to ask better questions. So again, very, very fortunate when Collin was growing up, having two fantastic parents who were there to support him, but were always like, Rick, we just want to support. He loves this game. We just want to, passionate. We want to make sure he works hard. If he says that's the goal, great, we'll help him work. But they never got mad at me as a coach. Like, why did Collin shoot 76? No. Never. They just want to foster their son to enjoy the game. They saw that. They saw the joy it brought to them. They go, man, we're going to do whatever we can to do that. Now that's rare because now the carrot of college scholarships and all that stuff is happening earlier and earlier. Rankings are now important. Well, they think it's important at 12, 13, which is ridiculous. And their concept of who the best 12-year-old rarely equates into who the best player is when they're 25 years old. Okay. That's back to development. Okay. So again, I could go off on the rails on this one big time, but emotional management is about, I get to choose a response. I want people to be curious instead of critical and judgmental. And I also want people to manage expectations because that sets where the bar of frustration is going to be.
That's amazing. While you were speaking, I was writing that down because I think it's really important what you said. This doesn't just apply to the player. This applies to everyone in their team, whether it's the coach, at the professional level, it's the caddy, at the junior golf level, it's the parent, right? If everyone was responding instead of reacting, if everyone was curious over critical, and if everyone was willing to sit down and say, what is our expectation? Because let's be honest, there are players out there who get mad on the first hole because they're already out of line with those expectations, right? You said something about the ego, right? I'd like to pull on it a little bit before we talk about the next phase of this podcast, but the ego, right, is really either the asset or the enemy. And how do you help players, coaches, parents navigate using the ego to their advantage?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if you don't mind, I'm going to pivot off that word to identity. So ego can be defined different ways, and sometimes it has a negative connotation. Ego is not always bad. Okay. Yet, if we're trying to protect an ego, I don't want to look bad in front of somebody else. I don't want to embarrass myself. I want to, that starts to now create back to interference. Is I'm already projecting, oh, if I mess up, that'll be embarrassing. I don't want to be embarrassing. Thus, I'm now reacting to something that's not even happened, right? Basic anxiety and stress is thinking about something in the future that may or may not happen, right? So I look at and if you don't mind, I'm gonna use and this happens with every single competitive player I work with. I had one yesterday. So he's playing in a tournament on Saturday and Sunday. Okay. I saw him on a Thursday. I said, what is your goal for this weekend? Now it's a very loaded question, and I purposely say it that way. And he goes, what do you mean goal? What should I shoot? Well, I go, I don't know. Why are you teeing the damn thing up? Right. And so we start to now he goes, well, it's really important. And I said, great. I want to know what's important to you, to be in the top 10, because that gets me an exemption for the rest of this in this junior thing. I go, great. So let's understand results do matter. I'm not the type who says results don't matter. It's only about a process. The only reason we're doing a process is to get a good result, everybody. So why don't we, instead of saying, oh, don't think about result, let's embody and say, Rick, I want to be in the top 10. Then I pull from there. I go, so based on course conditions, based on weather, you did a practice round, what are going to be some important performance goals for us to take out there? Is this a golf course where fairways, hitting fairways is more necessary? Is these greens very firm and fast to where keeping the ball in front of the hole is important, right? And I could go down all these things. So they go, oh, you mean I can create a game plan of how I'm going to be in the top 10? And I know we're guessing scores and all that stuff, but let's say for him it's 74, 74. How do I navigate to shoot 74 below becomes my follow-up question. Then I keep drilling down. I go, okay, how do you need to be on the golf course? And they look at me like, what? Yeah, how do you need to be? Who's the type of person that's going to shoot 74 or below for 2 days in a row? And they already kind of know where they're going because they've been working with me. They go, yeah, okay, I need to be, I think for this particular player, it was patient. Okay. They jump ahead a little bit. It was back to clarity, because part of his visualization and decision making, we needed him clarity. And then the other thing was commitment, right? And that word's thrown a lot around, but he wanted to commit to his shots. I said, so for you to be able to do that, what do you have to do in what's the behaviors you could do that? So now we drill down to in his pre-shot routine, his post-shot routine, his pre-round routine. We now go back to behaviors that he does have control over, that now leads to a better performance, which now leads closer to the result. So when I talk about ego, I shift it to the identity. Who do you need to be at your best for that day? Who do you need to be for this particular environment where the wind is whipping and you're going to have to hit flighted irons, and that's going to be a priority. So guess what? Maybe we should practice flighted irons on Friday to be better prepared for Saturday and Sunday. So I don't want my players to shy away from telling me what result they want. And I think that's happened a little bit. It's like, oh, it's not about the result. Don't think about the results. Like, these competitive players are playing because there's competition. Score does matter. We have to sign a scorecard. Instead of trying to run away from this, why don't we freaking embrace it? Yeah. I mean, Collin wanted to win every single freaking week. And then it was, okay, what's the plan to do that? Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I know where other people are going. It's like, if it's only about outcome, oh, guy, I got to be here. It's like, I get that part, but I need to reverse engineer of what it's going to take to shoot those scores and such. So I look at it as the identity. I know ego is slightly different, but people want to protect their ego. They don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to look silly. They want to make sure they look good in front of other people. I get that. But part of identity is saying, I'm going to be composed even if I hit it sideways, because I'm going to be somebody who's resilient. I'm going to be somebody who's going to bounce back. I'm going to do my post-shot routine. Now we've kind of dealt with the embarrassment issue by strengthening who wants to show up for that round of golf.
I absolutely love that you said results, because we are in the results business, right? The thing that I think is really important for people to understand and hear that you said is take ownership of that result. Don't just want to finish top 10, but how are you going to finish top 10, right? When we look at goal setting, right, everybody understands what, how, why, right? The why is really maybe the thing that junior golfers struggle with, because they think why is about getting that external reward and that accolades and all those things. But when they really do figure out what that why is at their core, to make a change or to show themselves that they can do it or to be the person that they want to be, right, is amazing. But when you have players that tell you, I want to finish inside the top 10, and then you break it down or drill it down to those goals, and then when they're achieving those goals, how often would you say they're acknowledging what they did in those steps? Or is the acknowledgement more about, I did it, Rick, I won, and they forget the steps that they took?
I don't allow them to forget the steps they took. So it's all about, now we talk about post-shot routine, but I do a lot of post-round, post-tournament assessments. So, and they're very basic questions, but it's back to, oh, you shot 73. Great. And the question I ask from a mental perspective is, I said, you're allowed to go back in time and hit any shot you want again. But you can't say the goal is to hit a better shot. Was there any shot in those 73 that was a decision you wish you did something different, you lack of commitment, you were distracted, you had interference, and you did nothing about it in the play, and you wish you had that shot back, that mental mulligan? Then people start to really get, it's easy to say, oh, I wish I didn't three putt. I wish I go, fine, but did you 3-putt because you misread it? Did you 3-putt because you were so line bound, you forgot about speed? Now I go into, we want to now extract from the result what happened. So I don't allow anybody, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, to not assess the mental side, the performance side, because I think there's clues within that. So let's say the front nine, they shoot 2 under, and the back nine, they shoot 4 over. There's clues that may occur that were performance-based, interference-based, state-based. I want to know, and I want them to start going, yeah, I was 2 under. My God, everything was, I had this crystal clear game plan. Man, I was feeling good. I make the turn. I look, I'm 2 under. Holy crap, don't screw this up, right? And now they're more aware of where their mind is going. They're aware they're getting a little tighter. They're getting aware they're becoming more conservative with their lines. To me, that's the magic. And I tell junior golfers, I said, I want you to make as many mistakes as possible from the age of 13 to 17. They look at me, what do you mean? I go, well, when you're in college and you're going beyond, let's get all those mistakes done and learn from them. Then as it gets higher and higher up, you're a refined player who your golf IQ is higher. You're less reactionary because you've made mistakes and you've learned. So yeah, I don't allow anybody to not assess their tournaments. And sometimes it's very simple, everybody. It's like a 3-minute conversation. Hey, tell me what you did well. What did we learn, and what do we need to work on? Pretty simple. But most people are wired to what went wrong. And even if it was good, like, yeah, I hit the ball really well today, and that's why I shot 71. Awesome. Why do you think you hit the ball so well? How were your swing thoughts? Man, I wasn't having any swing thoughts, man. I was so smooth. I was thinking tempo. I go, note to self. That might be important 3 weeks from now when you're doing U.S. Junior AM qualifying, and sometimes you start overthinking your swing. So I try to compare and contrast people's performances. And certainly we can look at stats to know I hit my proximity to the hole here. Great. I like to go, if there was a mental scorecard now, what were the differences? And sometimes people say, no, my processes were great. It felt great. Swing was off. Fine. But usually if we dig a little bit, there might be an external environment thing that shifted their state, who they played with, pace of play, weather, course conditions, right? These things that irritated them or got at them, that now they're going to be more cognizant. Like, now that I think about it, I was playing with these 3 guys. They couldn't shut up there. And you start seeing that now they go back and go, wow, that did bother me. And I didn't have a strategy to deal with it. That's where I come in. Okay, we learn that strategy next time. What are we going to do? And that to me is the fun part of coaching.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you used the word state quite a few times. And I know it's at the foundation of what you do. Some players, they listen to that and they don't really even understand necessarily what you mean by state, or probably more importantly, they're not aware of how to manage their state or ultimately how to move their state when they're 3-4 under through the first 3 holes, or they're 3-4 over. And so if you could just pull on, how do we manage our state? And then more importantly, how do we redirect our state to that optimal level?
Wonderful. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and go with definitions. So whenever I work with somebody purely on the mental game, I still do a little swing stuff. I still do, but mental game coaching for me, I ask 3 basic questions. I've said this many, many times, anybody who's seen me in person. First one, is the mental game of golf important? Everybody raises hand up. Yes, Rick. Oh my gosh, it's so important. Awesome. Second, do you currently train the mental game? Maybe 10% will raise the hand and say, yeah, I do something. Great. But you have now 90% who don't do anything or don't formally train it. We have a gap now. Okay. That's my opening as a coach to say, great, we have some stuff. You said it's important. You're not really training it formally. So why don't we create a plan on that? So the third question is really back to what we're going to talk about now is, in order to train something, you have to define what it is in the first place. And so the mental game, I asked somebody, so what is the mental game? What are we actually training? And you get all kinds of different answers. You get everything from positive thinking to visualization and that's all true. Those are part of the mental game. But just as a coach, I want to make sure we're on the same page. I define the mental game as optimizing our state. Mentally, what am I thinking about? Emotionally, what am I feeling? And then ultimately my physical body, will react to those thoughts and emotions. So the state I'm in will affect grip pressure. It will affect timing. It will affect sequencing. It will affect decision making. It will affect focus. And so I want to now have the buy-in is that, hey, Zach, you and I are going to work on optimizing your state. When you're at your best, what are you thinking, feeling, and doing? And it could be very simple. Yet, what are some of those interferences? Oh, Rick, I'm a hothead. I get so pissed off, and then I get frustrated, and then the next hole I make another bogey because I make a risky decision. So now we know state, okay, will affect performance. It'll affect our focus. So if I'm distracted, okay, that is a form of cognitive state. What am I thinking about? What am I focusing on? It starts with that, by the way. Then we get into emotions. I'm on the first tee and I got paired with these guys. I don't like them. I can't believe I get to play. I'm playing with them again. Now we have an emotional reaction. That emotional reaction makes the golf swing a little tighter. Yet we blame the golf swing for the ball to go way to the right when in fact our grip pressure increased because we're still pissed off that we got paired with them. So I'm looking at state management as a way to help people understand mentally what's going on. Now, mentally, again, is usually a lot of the thinking part. There's an emotional aspect to that. And then ultimately, how is my body responding to that? So I look at, and how I've even tried to simplify it is, are you in a state of fear, which is anxiety and stress, fear, or are you in a state of flow, which is optimal experience? I'm fully focused, immersed in the present moment. I have confidence. I believe I can execute the shot that's in front of me. I actually look forward to the opportunity of the shot. There's an interesting one. I actually look forward to hitting the shot. Most people's like, crap, I don't like this shot, right? So state management is super important. So back to now the original question is, awareness of the state you're in is a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
What am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? Okay. I never asked that in college. I would just after the round go, man, I was a hothead today. Yeah. 15 holes later, you now finally acknowledge that you were frustrated. When I can hit a shot, be frustrated, by the way, that's going to be a human experience, and go, is that going to serve me 2 minutes now when I got to go into the tree line and make a decision? No. Okay, what can I now do, right? Post-shot routine, in between shots, I could look. One that I like to do a lot is what's called expanded awareness. Instead of looking down and spinning in my head, I look up as if I'm looking at a panoramic view of 180 degrees around me, and I'm doing smooth rhythmic breaths to regulate. What am I focusing on? Now I'm not in my head. I'm using breath as a way to center and relax myself. And now I have 2, 3, 4 minutes of walking between my shot. That to me is state management. But nobody does that because they're either thinking, well, you're supposed to get frustrated, which is fine, but they don't now call a timeout on themselves. Should I stay in this state for the next shot? Usually the answer is no, by the way. And then you can maybe have the tools to do it. But the awareness is the first part. I'm aware that I'm in this state. This is not going to be optimal for me to hit this golf shot. Like me hitting a driver off a wide open par 5 and wanting to send it and be like Bryson DeChambeau and just, that's awesome. That's a state, right? And then if you ask somebody to hit a flop shot off a tight lie to a tight hole location, you probably have to have some finesse. You have to have some feel. You have to have some patience. That's a different state too. So I'm intrigued with people. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And then ultimately, how does that respond in their physical body? And fear to flow, those are two extremes. I get it. Most golfers are in that gray area in between. But if you can start to identify where you're in that gray area, and you want to start going from a little bit more of I'm a little nervous, a little anxious, and I want to go to neutral. I didn't say optimal. What would I do, right? And I could change my focus. I use eyes, I use breath, I use self-talk, I use questions to now refocus on something. I can change my emotions. Like this is triggering fear. Well, when somebody's doing that, they look at the environment as a threat. With flow, we look at it as a challenge. That's a mindset, cognitive reframing. I've looked at it differently now. That will mean something different to me. So again, I could go on and on, but state management starts with being aware of what am I thinking, feeling, and doing. Is this going to serve me on this next shot? If it's yes, go right ahead. If it's no, do I have to change the thinking, the feeling, or the physical part? Now, it usually starts with the thinking. Everybody, we get triggered by an environment of this I don't like, and then emotion comes up. But sometimes you have to be aware of the emotion first to go, where did that come from? Okay. So again, I can go on go different rabbit holes on that.
That's amazing. I think you discussed it when we talked about the outcome and the results of leaning into it, acknowledging it, and deciding what you're going to do about it. And that same formula applies to your state management. If you're angry, don't just try and say I'm not and look up at the sky and believe that, a unicorn is going to come down and save you, right? You have to control it, right? You have to step up. And I think, to be frank, you are a pioneer in this space. You have transformed the way that coaches like myself and players around the world are learning how to not just look at golf as these silos, right? I'm going to get very good at my swing. I'm going to get very good at my short game. I'm going to then get very good when I get all those things, usually is what happens, right? When I get all those things, then I'm going to spend some time on the mental game, right? When it's actually at all times, right? We're constantly trying to improve skills in every area. And for these people listening and people around the world, you've done something amazing to create a program that allows players to have access to all of this incredible information that you've just talked to us about, right? We could have had an entire 2-hour podcast just on breathing, or a 2-hour podcast on goal setting, or a 2-hour podcast on state management. There is a way for these people to get this information and to tangibly have access to you. How do they do that?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think as a coach, you want to, on a business side, you want to leverage your expertise and you want to help as many people as possible. And we now, with the company that I co-founded called Flowcode, we've done that with online portals. We've done it with allowing people to try different breathing rates. I think we have over 40 different breathing rates in there, and guided meditations, but also back to the application of the golf course. I have, I don't know, say about 150 videos on pre-shot routine and what do I do on the golf course. And course, man, I still want to make it golf, right? But where state management performance is also about understanding that these skills need to be trained off the golf course so they can show up under stress on the golf course. It's like a golf swing too. So we have this portal online. I certainly do one-on-one. We've certified 140 coaches in the Flowcode method. But having that access daily, we just started something called Flow Boost, where we have a coach daily putting somebody through a visualization, a breath work or something, because we want to train it. It's a mind gym. We're trying to train the mind and change those habits, make us more focused, make us more calmer, and being able to, again, manage our state. So yes, Flowcode. The golf website is flowcode.golf. We have a bunch of free master classes and stuff for people to understand that a little bit more. But yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about, and we have a junior academy within it because we talk to juniors slightly different than we do other people. But no, I appreciate you allowing me to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to take all your time and spend all day just nerding out about this. And you're an incredible resource that has so much knowledge. So I really do encourage the listeners to go and seek that out, right? To take a look at what's out there, because you are 100% right that the average golfer or even elite player doesn't always train every asset, right? And when I say asset, I mean the mind or the mental performance side truly should become an asset. When we look at golfers around the world, most of the time I don't hear players saying, I won because of my mental game. It's always, well, I have everything else right, but I don't know, there's something not clicking, and they're not taking the time to dive into these skills. So I really do encourage them. There's a few things that stood out to me, right? Curious over critical, respond over react, expectation management, understanding that it's not the ego, right? It's more the identity and getting to the root cause of that. And then most of all, results matter, right? And we need to figure out how we influence those results. You've been amazing with your time. I'd love to take more, but we we started this podcast with the goal of adding value, and you've just absolutely crushed that. But we also named the podcast Earn Not Given. And I would ask you, when you hear that statement, what does earned not given mean to Rick Sessinghaus?
You got to work your ass off. I mean, I love that for many, many reasons. Just where I'm at right now in my own life with growing a business, that sometimes you get hit in the face with something doesn't work out well. And it's like, and so it's not given. And I've been very fortunate that I've had some great opportunities that you could say come my way, but I think a lot of that is because I've put myself out there. I work hard. I've made so many mistakes. And I think that's what's being lost a little bit and this is even with my kids, not to knock on them, but I encourage them to make mistakes, but they want to stay in a comfort zone. They want to stay. It's like, well, this is fine. I go, yeah, but this fine is not going to be even close to fine or good enough 5 years from now. I mean, our environment is changing in golf. The players are getting more athletic. They're getting better trained. So we have to work hard, whatever that means to you. In flow, we talk about intrinsic motivations over extrinsic motivation. I can have a goal, but I am passionate about what I do. And so that purpose helps me work hard because I'm aligned with, I am adding, like you said, adding value to me is helping as many people as possible. And that requires me to work my butt off to be able to do it. And then I feel better at the end of the day. Even if things didn't go well, I go, well, I was still aligned with my purpose. I was still aligned with adding value and helping people. So I love that the part of the earned is, yes, the work ethic has to match the goal that you're going towards. It has to. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have a gap and then you're going to be frustrated and wish that somebody gave me a break or gave me this. And it's like, okay. And I'm not saying when it's going to occur, but you do have to work your ass off.
I love that. And you've definitely worked your ass off to get where you are. As a coach in the industry, I just want to say thank you because the golf industry is better because of that effort and that passion that you share every day. And I can't thank you enough for being someone that inspires me every day and makes me a better coach. So you're so gracious with your time, but most of all, you're gracious with your passion, and you inspire me, and hopefully you inspire everyone listening. So on behalf of everyone, thank you for your time, and thank you for what you've done for the game of golf.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You want to see how we do it in the pros?
Changing your swing is about repetition without repetition. You don't just hit 500 balls with this thing and change your swing. You also don't just hit 500 balls without a thought.
Welcome to Earned Not Given.